Welcome back to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We'll tell your stories to our community. I'm Ruth Bombigas. We're missing our buddy Bobby Keys today, and hope he's feeling better, and we'll have him back in the saddle next week. So we're soldiering on, but we have great folks here to talk about the great things that go on in this community. Kansas City is truly a unique city in the philanthropic and the charitable work that goes on here. And one of those great stories is Welcome House. And we have Jamie Boyle here, who's president. Right. Okay, we did that. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
And I know that you had been on with KC Cares, but it's been a few years.
Yeah,
so
it's been a little bit.
Imagining there are new and great things. But if there were folks who, for some reason, weren't listening when you were on last, bring us up to speed. But tell us first, Welcome House. What does that mean? I know you're not knocking on doors and being the welcome wagon.
No. So Welcome House is a sober living recovery program for adult men here in Kansas City. It was founded in 1971 by an all-male AA group. And if you're familiar with the 12 recovery steps, the 12th step involves working with other alcoholics or addicts in crisis. And this group of men from this AA group were attempting to do that, and they were struggling with a sober, safe environment to put individuals or a place to work with individuals in early recovery. And so they initially passed a hat at their AA meetings and rented sort of shady hotel rooms in Kansas City.
Oh, no.
And, that wasn't a long-term viable strategy. And so at some point they bought a neighborhood house and then eventually got the house next door and connected it with a porch. And over time, as demand grew, they got one of the red brick apartment buildings you see that seems like they've been stamped out around Kansas City, and capacity grew to the mid-30s. And in 1986, we acquired the facility we're in now, and we're an 80-bed facility. So,
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Who comes to Welcome House? I know you just described who the person is. But
Sure.
Do people have to fill out application? Do they show up? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, we've got an application and in-person interview process. Guys come to us from all walks of life. It's not uncommon to have professionals with homes, families, people struggling with early sobriety and needing some support and structure and assistance. We also have relationships with several other organizations around town, many of them really now at this point, but RADAC on the Kansas side, and Truman and Swope and Shawnee Mission Medical Center, and Artists Helping the Homeless. So at any given time, a percentage of our population may have come straight off the street, having had their disease take them to that place. And then other folks, are just trying to stay sober and getting into early recovery and maintaining family and relationships with their wives and children and maintaining employment and those types of things.
So you have 8 spots for 80.
80, yeah.
Are you full most of the time?
Yeah, we vary between 90-95%. We'll never be 100% because it actually takes some time to turn some beds and that kind of thing. But we're in the 90 to 95%, and frequently on and off a wait list. So there is some variability throughout the year in census and occupancy, but we may have folks call us and we don't have a bed, and so we put them on a 3 or 4 or 5 person wait list, and then 2 weeks later we may have 3 open beds. So
that's got to be tough.
It is. It's tough. Yeah.
For the men that are there, and they range in age. What's the
21 years and older?
So you got to be 21.
Our mean age or average age is about 38 years old.
And what's the average length of stay for someone?
Our program is suggested and structured around 9 months as the more standard or traditional stay. That's a new program we put into place the latter part of last year. Our recommendations prior to that had been less time, but what we found, and when we reviewed the data, folks were more successful longer term if they stayed with us a little bit longer, and it makes some sense. I mean, in early recovery, it's just a process, and it takes some time. I know it personally, and I didn't get it the first time, and what you find is that the longer you're sober and the longer that you involve yourself and sort of immerse yourself in the recovery community, your chances of maintaining sobriety and staying sober rise, and so we would have folks come to our program before and, in a fairly short amount of time with our support, be able to rebuild their lives, but they really just hadn't done the work in the community. They hadn't built the relationships and the other support networks they were going to need, and they would leave and not be as successful as they could have been.
So this was to make sure
Yeah.
that what you're doing really pays off.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Shine. Give us those good statistics.
The good statistics.
Sure.
Well, we first of all, probably the statistic we're the most proud of is that our graduate rate has increased by 50% in the last couple of years, and that was also a process. I mean, a couple of years ago, we really looked at our structure and the management of the program, and we tightened up on that and revised it some. Really focusing on personal accountability and responsibility in recovery. So, if you think about it this way, if you come to the Welcome House, you don't have to have anything. A person can come and have not worked for several years. So they can come with no money. They can come with no clothes, no car, no driver's license, no social security card, no support of any kind. But if they have a sincere desire to find sobriety, build a foundation, and change their life, and we have an open bed, we're going to accept them, so that's an amazing thing, really. But
yes, it is, and probably a very costly one. We'll go
well,
there in a minute.
it is. But what comes along with that is then the person's responsibility and accountability to do their part. I've said this a lot to guys over the years. I wish I could give sobriety to you. I wish through some magic process or osmosis or sprinkling of some pixie dust, you could get sobriety, but it just doesn't work that way. And there's work that has to be done, and there are things that they have to do. And so we really focused on that, making sure our program was structured and managed to hold guys accountable. So that's where it started. Now, over the last few years, with increased support and funding from grants and through some special events, and we've been able to reinvest back into the program. We just implemented a new, which is basically an electronic medical record for mental health and social service agencies to manage our program and do care planning and individualized care plans for our guys to walk them through our program. We've added some staffing, some peer support specialist roles, and so a lot of things have gone into sort of changing and improving our outcomes over the last few years. It's not just one thing that we can really point to, but it's exciting.
What does it cost per resident? I don't know if you have an
Sure.
annual or how you
Well, our annual
do that.
operating budget is approaching $1.2 million.
Oh, my goodness.
Our model is unique in the sense that our residents are required to pay $22 a day to be at the Welcome House, and that includes everything in the program: room, board, 3 meals a day, all of our recovery meetings and our workshops and recovery coaching. And but for Welcome House, it costs us about $40 a day or so to have them there.
So
And
how do you make that difference?
The difference is made up through charitable contribution, support from private foundations and trusts, and a couple of major special events every year, one of which is approaching here April 25th.
All right, well, we'll do that plug real quick. Tell us about April 25th.
Yeah, April 25th is our 5th annual breakfast. This is an event that has really grown over the years. Tom Watson has been principally involved from the very beginning. He's a longtime friend and supporter of the Welcome House. Last year, the event drew 800 people, raised over $220,000. We hold it at the Overland Park Convention Center. And last year, our guest speaker, our keynote speaker, was Daryl Strawberry, who had a very interesting story, and it was a really powerful event. Tom Watson also was there. This year, it's Ryan Leaf, who was a rising star quarterback in the NFL and had just a devastating fall from grace due directly to drugs and alcohol. And so I think, again, this year it's just going to be an outstanding event. One of the really cool things that happens is Tom Watson auctions off and raffles off spots in a round of golf to play with him, which is a really, really cool thing.
Wow,
and that's
how terrific.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And that's a popular part of the event.
And where can folks find out about
They can
that
find out
event?
about it at our website, welcomehousekc.org. Or they can call the Welcome House at any time and talk to us about it. It's 816-472-0760.
When a gentleman is at Welcome House, what's their life like? What's the day-to-day?
Yeah, so, well, let's just kind of start from the very beginning. So if I'm a guy and I come to the Welcome House and I don't have a job or any kind of support, one of our programs is called the Jumpstart program, and we require all of our residents in that situation to participate in that. And we will work them 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week for the first 2 weeks to help offset some of the program fees so they don't fall too far behind. But it's more than just that. It's also to get them involved, try to help write their daily sort of structure and routine. As alcoholics and addicts, especially in the latter stages of addiction, nothing about our lifestyle is normal. So the idea of getting a good night's rest and getting up and putting in some meaningful work and eating 3 good meals a day, none of that stuff is what's going on. And so that's another way that we try to do that. Now, we also have a rehabilitative jobs program at Welcome House, and so there are a number of roles that if there's availability, somebody might take on a position working on at the desk, the reception or front desk at the Welcome House as a driver or a maintenance or custodial position. And we have relationships with organizations throughout Kansas City that understand our guys and employ our guys. And in fact, we have a couple of 15-passenger vans that we provide transportation to and from work. As you can imagine, a number of our guys come to Welcome House without driver's licenses, for example. So a person would come in and immediately get involved in Jumpstart, also be required to go out and seek permanent or long-term employment. Employment is a requirement of our program. They would also encounter recovery support specialists who will work with them on a regular basis. In our program, they will take Welcome House University courses that are focused on recovery issues, but also personal and professional development. Things like personal financial literacy and mental health and recovery and relapse prevention, courses like that. And ultimately, what will happen is that they will live at Welcome House much like you would if you were in college at a men's dorm. We have curfews and you have to sign in and sign out. But they'll get a job and they'll eat their meals there. They'll go to AA or NA meetings there daily.
Do you provide counseling as well, mental health counseling?
We
'Cause
do.
that
We're
seems
not
to
a
be
clinical organization. One of the really cool, more recent collaborations that we've done that goes along with the technology piece that we've recently implemented is we've partnered with First Call here in Kansas City. And we now have a First Call recovery advocate on who's a clinical social worker on site 2 days a week, working with our peer support specialists, doing care planning and ongoing counseling. And there's an assessment process. One of the other things that we found in looking at our data and information and realized was that a lot of guys come to Welcome House and they are sincere and they want to find recovery and they're struggling, but there's some other underlying issue that's preventing their success. And so through our relationship with First Call, we're able to assess these folks and then direct them to the right social service or care and require their participation as a requirement for our program's participation.
Oh, I love that collaboration.
Right. So
that's great.
So really, we're trying to set them up to be as successful as they possibly can, not only at the Welcome House and in our program, but after they leave the Welcome House.
With the increase or maybe increased attention to opiate
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah.
What have you seen at Welcome House? Has that impacted you all?
50% increase for the first time
Oh my
ever.
gosh.
Welcome House has always been all inclusive. So even all the way back to the early 70s, it was alcoholics and addicts. I've been involved with Welcome House 5 years or so. There are always opiate addicts at Welcome House. But what we've seen is just this slow and steady rise of the guys coming to the Welcome House seeking support and services who identify themselves as addicts only. And for the first time, 2017, when we looked back at our numbers, that category is the largest category.
Oh,
So
my.
this is a program that started, and I would suggest that 5, 10, probably 15, 20 years ago, the largest population at Welcome House would probably have been alcoholics, or some combination of alcoholism and addiction. These are people that describe themselves this way.
Right.
2017, for the first time, the largest category was addict only. So, and it's not just opiate; it's methamphetamine.
It's a combination.
Yeah.
It tends to be. It's not just one. How big is your staff?
Well, it's been growing, thankfully, through the support of organizations like the Healthcare Foundation and Block Foundation, and we are. Let's see, I have 5 professional staff people, and then on top of that, we have about 15 to 20 guys at any given time who are actually residents in our program working in house supporting roles. So total staffing would be 20 to 25.
Well, can you use help? And if you can, how do they?
We can always use.
What do you need, and where? How do
help.
they find out how they can do it besides writing that big check?
Well, again, on our website, there's welcomehousekc.org. There's a volunteer tab and donation tab where people can find out. We send newsletters out. You can sign up to to be added to our mailing list. There's a couple of key areas though where we really are fortunate to have help, and it's where we like to try to focus the help. We have a program called the Lay Counseling Program at Welcome House, and these are really, it's really recovery coaching. These are folks in long-term recovery from the Kansas City community. I went through the Welcome House program myself, and after I had been sober, a year plus, I volunteered one night a week down at the Welcome House as a part of my own personal recovery program, and just worked with guys that were new or returning to recovery. And again, we're not clinical. This is one alcoholic or addict helping another alcoholic or addict. The Welcome House model is really, the industry calls us a peer support model or a peer-to-peer model, and we really have seen that be incredibly successful. I come from a very professional family. I grew up in healthcare, and I had access to all kinds of physicians and counselors and different types of interventions, and nothing really worked until I walked through the front door of the Welcome House, and something changed, and it was really kind of a perfect storm of the right message and right person delivering the message with the right time in my life. And so that's what we're trying to do.
So you're a walking success story.
Well, yeah, sometimes. Sometimes.
Well,
But so that's one way. The other way is that we have the Welcome House University program, again, courses and workshops in varying
you need
categories.
people to teach
We
those.
need people to teach them. That's right. And
Great.
so some of our partnering agencies teach courses on a regular basis, but we also have other folks who are knowledge experts in a specific area come in and do them as well. And so that's tremendously helpful.
The Welcome House KC, you're doing wonderful things to help people who really are in a time of need, but can certainly add successfully to Kansas City if they just get that little boost up from the right angle. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.